Determined to prevent their escape, the elder prepares to attack. Seeing this, Dinji declares his determination to protect his disciples until the very end by using his life. Understanding the dean's intention, the elder urges his companions to flee. However, before they can escape, Dinji immediately creates an explosion large enough to be visible from below the mountain, leaving the rest of the elder's companions collapsing in its aftermath. As he suffers from injuries, the elder remarks on the rare spectacle of witnessing someone at the peak of the Dharma realm self-destructing. The elder's disciple inquires about his master's condition and their next plan for Yixien. The elder assures him that his injury is minor and not a concern. As for Yixien, he declares that they must pursue him, determined to end Yixien's life today. Meanwhile, at the entrance of Kanglin Mountain, Yixien and the rest watch the spectacle with sadness, possibly witnessing the explosion from afar. Fueled with anger, Mu Yun clenches his fists and vows to kill the elder, referring to him as an old dog. Yixien and Bai Zhe voice their agreement, ready to confront the elder. However, Anji interrupts, demanding them to be quiet. She reminds them that her grandpa sacrificed himself to save them so they could survive. She questions if they want his sacrifice to be in vain, especially when they would likely die if they go after the elder now. Yixien calls out her name, but the ninth-floor master and Yutian suddenly appear, urging Yixien to come with them. The ninth-floor master informs Yixien that the enemy will come after him soon, suggesting they take refuge in the drunken immortal house for a while. Suspicious of the ninth-floor master's intention, Yixien drew his sword, questioning him about why he was offering help. Nervously, the elder explained that the third master had sent him to secretly protect Yixien, knowing he was being hunted by the Kangmu Academy. Curious, Yixien then asked Yutian why he had come. Yutian responded that he considered it his duty to protect Yixien, as he was not only a friend of his granddaughter but also a rare talent from the Jiang Kingdom. Suddenly, as if to alarm Yixien and his group, a shout from a stupid individual was heard, urging their comrades to go after Yixien. Concerned, Mu Yun turned to Yixien, seeking guidance on their next move, as their pursuers were closing in. The ninth-floor master urged Yixien to leave immediately, emphasizing the need to act swiftly. Grateful for the elder's help, Yixien thanked him, and the elder instructed them to follow him. In a blink of an eye, they vanished from their position, just before Xian Kang and his group could reach them. Observing the situation, Xian Kang questioned the sanity of the drunken immortal house for opposing his Kangmu Academy just to protect Yixien. Xian Kang remarked that it was ridiculous for the drunken immortal house to defend Yixien, especially since more than a dozen experts from the Dharma realm were now after his life. He concluded that they were in for a fierce battle. As they watched the group chasing Yixien, Xian Kang suggested they should let the tigers fight, believing that if the drunken immortal house fell, it would benefit his branch greatly without any harm to them. Meanwhile, at the center of the market, where the distinguished drunken immortal house stood tall, a voice urged everyone in the surrounding area to leave, preparing for an impending encounter. Observing from the top, Yixien apologized to the ninth-floor master for involving the drunken immortal house. In response, the elder reassured him, stating that he wouldn't have brought Yixien here if he was afraid of the consequences. The elder declared that from now on, Yixien's enemies would be considered his branch's enemies as well. Grateful for the support, Yixien thanked the elder, promising not to forget his kindness. Seizing the moment, the ninth-floor master requested Yixien to speak highly of the drunken immortal house in front of his master. Shifting the focus, the ninth-floor master emphasized the need to protect themselves from the pursuers of the Kangmu Academy, and Yixien agreed. As the elder ordered the activation of the formation, the entire establishment of the drunken immortal house became enveloped in a blue beam of light that extended even into the sky. Multiple symbols emerged, visible from the windows. Witnessing this, Yutian expressed surprise that the drunken immortal house would employ the nine-spirit formation to get on the good side of the people supporting Yixien. Curious, Mu Yun asked the elder about the significance of the nine-spirit formation. Yutian explained that opening the nine-spirit formation once required 300,000 finest spirit stones, and activating it once demanded at least 500,000 spirit stones. Hearing this, Mu Yun broke into a sweat, remarking on the expensive cost of operating the formation and the apparent generosity of the drunken immortal house. The ninth-floor master dismissed the concern, stating that money was an external thing not worth mentioning. In his inner thoughts, the elder revealed that he didn't care even if he spent 1,000,000 spirit stones, as long as he could befriend a sword immortal like Yi Xian's master. Following this, the ninth floor master inquires about when Yi Xian's master will arrive. The group expresses surprise upon learning that Yi Xian has a master. Before Yi Xian could respond, multiple streaks of light reached the protective formation, signaling the arrival of attackers. Alarmed by the situation, Mu Yun recognized the newcomers as Xian Kang and his companions. Noticing that all of them are formidable opponents in the Dharma realm, Yu Tian pointed out the dire situation, suggesting that the drunken immortal house might be in trouble. Among the dangerous individuals floating from above, Xian Kang infused his hand with qi and directed his anger at the ninth floor master, declaring that since he wanted to be their enemy, they would all face destruction together. Without hesitation, he launched a powerful attack on the protective formation, causing cracks to appear in the surrounding barrier. Reacting immediately, the ninth floor master activated the formation, emitting bright lights to reinforce the barrier. Not willing to wait, Xian Kang urged his companions to strike the formation together and destroy it. Following the elder's signal, the rest of his group simultaneously directed their qi at the formation, causing the building to start collapsing. Despite Yi Xian's urgent warnings to flee, it was already too late, and the structure crumbled around them. As Xian Kang observed the destruction, he coldly remarked that this was the fate of those who dared to oppose the Kangmu Academy. Approaching the collapsed group, Xian Kang cruelly stepped on Yi Xian's hand, asserting that not joining his Kangmu Academy was the biggest mistake he ever made, shamelessly claiming that it was not the Academy's fault. Defiant despite the pain, Yi Xian stared at Xian Kang with unwavering determination, telling him that he would never forgive him. Enraged by Yi Xian's response, Xian Kang launched a brutal attack on Yi Xian's back, questioning his audacity to talk back when he was about to meet his end. Bai Zhe and Mu Yun called out to Yi Xian in worry, but Xian Kang callously tossed them aside, causing them to crash onto the ground. Focusing on Yi Xian once again, Xian Kang accused him of being responsible for the deaths of many disciples from the Kangmu Academy. Continuing his word, Xian Kang expressed his desire to make Yi Xian watch his friends die before him. After voicing his intention, Xian Kang immediately delivered a powerful kick to Anji's stomach, sending her flying to the side. With his sword in his hand, Yi Xian attempted to stand up, demanding Xian Kang to let them go as he tried to retaliate with his signature move. However, Xian Kang mocked him for relying too much on that move, effortlessly countering it and slamming Yi Xian forcefully enough to create a crater on the ground. Approaching Yi Xian with an intimidating presence, Xian Kang demanded to know if Yi Xian had a backer, ordering him to call for help as he delivers a vicious kick to his stomach. Suddenly, Yi Xian's master arrived, surprising both Xian Kang and the elder and causing them to question her identity. Ignoring their inquiry, Yi Xian's master addressed him sternly, criticizing him for allowing someone like Xian Kang to beat him up, finding it embarrassing for her as his master. With exhaustion evident in his eyes, Yi Xian called out to his master. Seeing her arrival, the ninth floor master excitedly exclaimed like a child. Curious, Yu Tian inquired about her identity. Smiling like a fangirl, the ninth floor master revealed that she was not only Yi Xian's master but also his idol. Outstretching her hand, a radiant green glow emanates from her palm, drawing the surrounding leaves to fuse into a majestic sword in her grasp. Witnessing this, Xian Kang rudely questions her identity, and the master replies that she is the backer he was asking about. Without hesitation, the master directs the sword towards them, creating havoc as Xian Kang trembles in fear, stunned by his realization that he is dealing with an actual sword immortal. His eyes wide open as he realizes the onslaught that has occurred, leaving only him and the disciple as they stare at the elder, inwardly in awe at the sight of someone at the peak of the Dharma realm destroyed in a second, leaving him wondering at the immortal's identity. Addressing Yi Xian, Xian Kang expresses his surprise that he is backed by a sword immortal. Inwardly, he reflects on his mistake, wondering how he will survive after crossing paths with such a powerful being. With no hope for escape, Xian Kang resolves to kill Yi Xian as his last act of retaliation, declaring that they should die together. However, in the blink of an eye, Xian Kang realizes that his arm is already gone as the master reminds him about his demand for Yi Xian to call her out. Before he can have his warrior moment, the master calls him out for his shameless actions and separates his body from his soul using her sword. Perplexed by the situation, Xiankang wonders how the master was able to do such a thing. Addressing Yixian, she instructs him to get up and learn a new sword technique if he is still alive. Yixian, in turn, responds that he is indeed still alive. The master inquired about Yixian's experience of being bullied, and he replied that he was unhappy. In response, the master told him that he would still face bullying in the future. She reminded him that if his temper outweighs his strength, it would be foolish on his part. Using herself as an example, the master illustrated that having a temper was acceptable, as long as one possessed the power to back it up. She demonstrated her point by displaying her ability to cut down whoever she pleased, using Xiankang's soul to emphasize her words as he was completely obliterated. Witnessing her display of power, the ninth-floor master celebrated the success of the drunken immortal house's bet on the treasure, smiling like a maniac as he acknowledged the presence of a formidable force behind Yixian, confirming her as a true sword immortal. Addressing Yutian, the ninth-floor master encouraged him to join the celebration, affirming that betting on Yixian had been the right decision. The master asked if he felt relieved, and Yixian responded affirmatively. The master then introduced her unique sword technique, known as one sword to set the soul, explaining its potency against soul-bodied opponents, and how it could gauge the strength of one's soul, even if they lacked a physical soul. This technique targeted weaknesses, rendering demons and spirits vulnerable. Enthused by the prospect, Yixian expressed his willingness to learn the technique. However, Yixian couldn't help but question his master about her decision not to kill the disciple. The master calmly responded that she was waiting for the disciple to call upon his great master. As if to hear this, Vegeta and Goku suddenly appear beside the disciple, demanding to know the person responsible for killing the Kungfu Academy's members. Nervously, the disciple pointed to the master, identifying her as the culprit. The elder addresses the master, arrogantly questioning her if she is Yi Xian's master, seemingly doubting her ability. With a tone of indignation, the master questions him if she doesn't look like a master. The elder responds with disdain, questioning her audacity to call herself a master in front of him. Following this, the elder declares his intention to send her to hell, sending a powerful chi in their direction. However, the master calls him ignorant as she casually neutralizes his attack midway, surprising the elder. Seizing the moment, the master directs her flying sword towards the elder, piercing him in the chest. Witnessing this, the other elder calls the master arrogant, immediately sending an initially small vortex of chi that turns into a giant and violent vortex, seemingly attempting to swallow them alive. Amidst the chaos, Yixian tells his master that he can no longer hold on. In response, the master envelopes him in her chi, criticizing him for not being able to handle that much. With a flick of her hand, a beam of chi penetrates the top of the vortex, causing a huge explosion that sends the disciple and the elder crashing to the ground. As he opens his eyes, the elder pleads for mercy when he realizes that the master is already standing before him, demanding to know the location of their academy while her flying sword is pointed at his head. With a trembling hand, the elder points at the mountains, indicating that it is over there. In response, the master thanks him, piercing his head as she sends her sword in the pointed direction, landing on a building, specifically on the academy's sign with the elder's body still stuck on the sword, leading to a display that seems to mock the academy. Addressing Yixian, the master instructs him to retrieve her sword within 6 months, threatening to break his legs if he fails the task. Hearing this, Yixian is left wondering how he will be able to accomplish the task. The rest of the group inquires if they should also bring back the sword, but the master disagrees, stating that they are too weak for such a task. Her words hit them like a brick, causing them to voice out their respective reactions. Addressing Yixian directly, the master informs him that she is returning, leaving him with the instruction to only call for her during critical moments. Yixian and the rest watch as she departs, expressing their gratitude and bidding their goodbyes. Turning to the elders, Yixian expresses his heartfelt gratefulness, thanking the seniors for their invaluable help. Yutian humbly insists that it is they who should be thanking him instead. Supporting his words, the ninth-floor master points out that with the help of his master, they will be able to reach greater heights in just 6 months, considering it a great blessing for both of them. Yutian concurs, suggesting there is no need for formality. Continuing the conversation, Yitian inquires about Yixian's future plans, suggesting that he can take some time to recuperate in the palace if he has no immediate plans. He mentions that the ninth princess has recently returned, so she can keep him company. In response, Yixian appreciates the elder's kindness. However, he firmly explains that his home has been destroyed, and his absolute determination is to rebuild it. Bai Zhe and Mu Yun concur with his decision, and the ninth-floor master assures Yixian of his support, inviting him to the drunken immortal house where they will offer assistance to the best of their ability. Similarly, Yutian expresses his support by promising to arrange manpower from the Public Works Department to help. In gratitude, Yixian and the group bow and thank the elders for their unwavering support. In the magnificent hall of the Great Cloud Empire branch of the Kongmu Academy, a gathering of revered elders engages in a passionate debate. One of the elders stands up and solemnly reminds everyone that this hall is a sacred place, dedicated to the memory of the esteemed deans and ancestors of Kongmu. He voices his strong opposition to a certain individual who has committed the grievous act of defiling this hallowed ground. However, another elder interjects, pointing out that the person in question is a formidable sword immortal. Despite this revelation, the first elder dismisses her status, emphasizing that she has slain the protector of the Kongmu Academy and displayed his lifeless body in this very hall. He deemed this act as an outright disrespect to the legacy of Kongmu Academy. Nevertheless, the second elder cautions against acting impulsively. He acknowledges that none within the academy possesses the strength to confront the sword immortal, and engaging her in battle would be tantamount to courting death. Unexpectedly, a figure who had been quietly engrossed in reading abruptly interrupts the debate, urging them to stop arguing. This individual sides with the first elder's view, asserting that sparing the sword immortal would only invite scorn and label them as weak and inept leaders in the Great Cloud Empire. Yet, in agreement with the second elder, the person acknowledges that facing the sword immortal would be a perilous endeavor beyond their capabilities. Caught in this dilemma, the leader of the elders sighs, admitting that he hasn't found a definitive solution to this conundrum. Suddenly, a tall and enigmatic man, garbed in dark attire, materializes seemingly out of thin air. He proposes an idea to the elders, suggesting that they unite with the Dark World. The elders, taken aback by this unexpected presence, recognize the man as the infamous Dark Lord, the enigmatic leader of an elite assassin group. Bewildered, they speculate about his motive for being there. Politeness and curiosity compelled the person seated on the throne to apologize for the distant reception, welcoming the Dark Lord cordially. In response, the Dark Lord brushes off the need for formalities and poses his proposition once more, asking them if they are willing to form an alliance. The person on the throne probes further, inquiring about the Dark Lord's plan. With a hint of doubt, he reminds the Dark Lord that even with their combined strength, defeating the formidable sword immortal might be an insurmountable challenge. As the Dark Lord closes his eyes, he addresses the person on the throne, acknowledging him as Dean Mu Xianqing. He points out that Xianqing is underestimating himself, emphasizing that by joining forces, it wouldn't be too difficult for them to deal with a sword immortal like her. The Dark Lord speculates that the sword immortal they face is likely injured. Perplexed by his claim, Xianqing asks the Dark Lord about the basis for his belief. In response, the Dark Lord explains that if the sword immortal weren't injured, they wouldn't have the opportunity to strategize against her. The other elder interjects, dismissing the Dark Lord's assumption as mere speculation. In an attempt to persuade them, the Dark Lord points out that the sword immortal not only killed the protector of the Kongmu Academy, but also tarnished the Academy's 1,000-year reputation. Hearing this, Xianqing contemplates the gravity of the situation, realizing that the reputation of the Academy must not be destroyed by his hands. With this realization, Xianqing makes a firm decision and demands to send an order to the main academy to eliminate the sword immortal. Meanwhile, back at Kanglin Academy, Yixian and the group return, and Yixian notices that he has stepped on something. As he lifts his foot, he realizes it is Dean Ji's gourd. Bai Zhe recalls the gourd's significance to the Dean, mentioning how the Dean has always kept it close, and Mu Yun adds that the Dean doesn't allow him to touch it. Yixian speculates that the Dean must have left it behind, fearing that they would forget about him. Their words evoke a poignant moment, and Anji sheds tears as she remembers her grandfather, Dean Ji. Yixian stands resolute with the gourd securely fastened to his waist, vowing to carry it with him from that moment onward. As he kneels on the ground, his heart brimmed with determination as he made a sincere promise to take care of his comrades and retrieve the bodies of the disciples on Kongmu Mountain Trail, vowing to fulfill the dean's final wishes by bringing them to the main academy of the Middle Kingdom. But as he attempted to rise, an unexpected weakness overcame Yi Xian, causing him to collapse to the ground, prompting concern from his comrades. Later, as Yi Xian showed signs of waking up, Anji inquired about his condition. However, as Yi Xian opened his eyes, Anji's expression changed to shock, pointing out something unusual about his eyes. Yi Xian questioned what was wrong with his eyes, unable to see anything as everything appeared dark. A familiar voice responded, informing him that the Tower of Boundary Hell had backfired and swallowed his eyes. Recognizing the voice, Yi Xian concluded that it was his master, and she confirmed it. The master explained that each time she intervenes, a significant burden would fall upon the boundless Tower of Hell, and as its master, that burden will be transferred to him. Shocked by the revelation, Yi Xian grappled with the realization of his blindness. The master clarified that the boundless tower was meant to consume his entire life, but his strong body had saved him, leaving only his eyes vulnerable. Anji, in her concern, implored the master to help him with her immense power. However, the master revealed the dangerous consequences of such an intervention, with the seal inside the boundless Tower of Hell threatening his very life. Concerned for his future, Anji couldn't help but wonder how he would manage without his sight. Yi Xian reassured her, saying he could still manage with a cane. However, his master instructs him not to worry too much since she could provide him with a new pair of eyes. With surprise in his voice, Yi Xian sought confirmation, and his master points out that he still has a sword, suggesting that he cultivate a pair of sword eyes using the sword. Yi Xian was intrigued by the master's words, and Anji shared his curiosity, wondering how a sword could become eyes. The master patiently explained that Yi Xian's body was akin to a sword, and that sword was intertwined with his flesh and blood. Consequently, it was natural for him to cultivate a pair of eyes through this connection. She guided him to utilize his heart as a sword and his sword as his eyes. If he mastered this technique, he would gain the ability to defeat his enemies with just a glance. The only question is if he can cultivate it. Yi Xian acknowledged his commitment to finding his sister, fulfilling the promise he made to Enlongxiu, and rebuilding the Kanglin Academy. Deep in thought, Yi Xian realized the multitude of responsibilities he had to handle. With determination in his expression, Yi Xian implored his master to teach him the technique. The master warned him that the cultivation process would be arduous and unconventional, and it would cause immense pain and difficulty. She asked if he truly believed he could endure it. Yi Xian responded resolutely, stating that he was not afraid of the pain, but he feared losing the chance to see the people he held dear. Both the girls momentarily stared at Yi Xian, seemingly smitten by his words. Pleased by his determination, the master agreed to pass on 2 sets of martial arts techniques to him, instructing him to practice them according to the prescribed method, adding that it was up to him to decide whether he could succeed or not. As the master places her hand on Yi Xian's forehead, their surroundings suddenly change, and 2 mysterious scrolls float around him. Intrigued, Yi Xian asks his master about the scrolls. His master replies that they are the martial art technique known as the sword fix the soul and the sword technique known as the sword eye skill. Yi Xian observes the scrolls, noticing that the words seem to come alive, forming multiple swords that converge on him, stabbing his eyes and causing excruciating pain. He describes the sensation as if knives were cutting through his eyes. The master offers to stop the process if the pain becomes unbearable, but Yi Xian bravely insists that he will, never gonna give you up. In a moment of intense agony, lightning flashes in his eyes, and he falls to the ground. When he opens his eyes again, he sees a blurred figure of his master, and she asks how it feels to have his sight restored. Tears of joy fill Yi Xian's eyes as he exclaims that he can see the light once more. The master then informs him that it's time for her to go and recuperate. Before she leaves, she reminds Yi Xian that the great masters of the boundless prison are awakening, and he must find the second Tao to help control the tower of the boundless prison and prevent them from breaking through the seal. Additionally, she warns him that his enemies are not only on the continent but also within the tower of the boundless prison, emphasizing the need for him to become stronger. In response, Yi Xian assures his master that he will search for the Tao after rebuilding Kanglin Academy. He promises to double his efforts in cultivation and become stronger on his own, without relying on her. He believes that the only way to survive in this world is to become immensely powerful. Hearing his determination, the master responds approvingly, stating that she will be waiting for his success. Upon their return from the hunt, Bai Zai and Mu Yun immediately express concern about Yi Xian's condition. Anji, overwhelmed with emotion, struggles to answer their question and starts shedding tears. Curious and worried, Mu Yun asks what happened. Anji reveals that Yi Xian has lost his sight, surprising both Bai Zai and Mu Yun. Contradicting her statement, Yi Xian opens his eyes, questioning Anji about what she is talking about. Seeing this, Mu Yun and Bai Zai smile with relief, while Anji is puzzled by what she is witnessing. Yi Xian explains that his master's method proved effective, reassuring Anji that he is fine now. Despite his assurance, Bai Zai and Mu Yun couldn't hold back their tears, prompting Yi Xian to wonder why they are crying when he is still alive. Mu Yun responds that Yi Xian nearly scared them to death the day before. Bai Zai agrees, thinking that Yi Xian would follow Dean Ji in the afterlife. Yi Xian reminds them that he couldn't just leave, as he made a promise to the dean. Changing the topic, he invites them to practice martial arts together, emphasizing the need for revenge. While observing them from the distance, Anji smiles through her tears while asking her late grandpa to bless the trio and the Kanglin Academy if he is ever in heaven. Later on, at the back mountain of the Kanglin Academy, the banners of the Drunken Immortal House and the Industrial Empire wave proudly as their men work tirelessly on the Academy's reconstruction. Yi Xian and his group gather, and he points out the treasures before them, obtained from the secret realm and from defeating Xian Kang and the others. He instructs them to take what they can use, while the finest items will be kept for cultivation, and the rest will be auctioned to raise funds for the Academy's repairs. Mu Yun chooses a pair of boots, immediately noticing a significant increase in his speed, estimating it to improve by 30 to 40%. He believes that even those in the God Harmony realm might struggle to catch up to him. Bai Zai selects a pair of arm guards, realizing they contain a beast soul that should enhance his power by 40%. Yi Xian expresses his approval. Yi Xian then turns to Anji, inquiring if she hasn't chosen yet. Anji shakes her head, explaining that there is no special weapon that fits her. Yi Xian reassures her that he will find a good sword for her later. Changing the topic, Yi Xian assigns Mu Yun and Bai Zai the responsibility of recruiting people from the Empire. They will seek out educated individuals, emphasizing that future Kanglin disciples must be proficient in both culture and martial arts. Curious, Mu Yun asks if Yi Xian intends for them to study and learn scholarly subjects. Yi Xian confirms this, explaining that they will focus not only on their disciples' strength but also their knowledge and critical thinking. He wants to avoid raising students who are solely profit-oriented. Mu Yun wholeheartedly supports this idea, rejecting the notion of their disciples becoming like those from Kangmu Academy. Anji also voices her support, emphasizing the importance of combining the heart of a Qin and the skill of a sword, embracing both civil and martial arts. With a serious expression, Yi Xian addresses Anji, revealing that he needs her assistance in finding a suitable location for a burial hall. He shares his plan to bring back the deceased disciples' bodies from Kangshan Trail and provide them with a final resting place, allowing them to return home. Tears of joy well up in Anji's eyes as she wholeheartedly agrees to assist with his plan. Later, at the Drunken Immortal House branch, Yi Xian shows the remaining treasures to the 9th floor master, requesting his help in auctioning them off. The 9th floor master realizes the value of these treasures and wonders if Yi Xian is in need of money. Yi Xian explains that they cannot solely rely on the Drunken Immortal House and the Jiang dynasty's royal family to rebuild Kanglin Academy. They also need to gather resources for cultivation, which requires funds. The 9th floor master suggests buying the treasures at their estimated price and then taking them to Qinzhou for auction. He assures Yi Xian that they will reimburse him for any additional premium paid. Yi Xian expresses his gratitude and agrees to the plan, and the elder tells him not to be overly polite. Changing the topic, the 9th floor master takes out a card from his sleeve, excitedly presenting it to Yi Xian as a gift from the 2nd floor master, and revealing that the card is the highest level VIP card of the Drunken Immortal House. With the help of this card, owners of the 5th floor and below must pay their respect to Yi Xian when they see him. Moreover, It grants him the ability to mobilize the strongest members of the Drunken Immortal House to fight 3 times, and he gets a 40% discount on every purchase from the establishment. Perplexed by the generous gift, Yi Xian inquires why the second-floor master would give him such a valuable item despite never having met him. The 9th-floor master reveals that the higher-ups of the Drunken Immortal House are already aware of the recent events. He expressed his gratefulness to Yi Xian and his master, revealing that he is now the owner of the 5th floor. Yi Xian congratulates the elder on his promotion and expresses his gratitude for the kindness of the Drunken Immortal House, promising to remember it. 10 days later, the sun accentuates the newly rebuilt Kanglin Academy as Yi Xian gazes at it with pride, while Anji speculates that her grandpa would be pleased to see it. Yi Xian agrees and suggests renaming the mountain that holds the foundation of Kanglin Academy for 100 or even 1,000 years to be called Ji Meteor Mountain. Anji tearfully agrees with his suggestion, recognizing the significance of the name. At that moment, Mu Yun inquires if Yi Xian is ready to go. With determination burning in his eyes, Yi Xian confirms, resolute in their mission to make those responsible pay the price for Ding Ji's demise.